What do we think of when we think of heaven? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods, talking about Bible topics one small step at a time. Sometimes it's hard when we think about heaven. Is it clouds? Are we floating around as fat baby angels with harps? Are we choirs of people singing songs all the time and floating around with our wings? That's, I think, what people usually come to mind. And if that's for you, you're not alone. I always kind of wonder, is heaven boring? That it always struck me as something that was going to bore me. And let's talk about heaven and start kind of having a different picture in our head, and one that's rooted in the scriptures and shows really kind of the hope and beauty and purpose of heaven. What we're going to talk about is one of my favorite books that I read as a Christian, called Home: How Heaven and the New Earth Satisfy Our Deepest Longing, by Fitzpatrick. I've read this 3-4 times and I enjoy it. I get something new out of it every time I go through it. And it really made me get a new image of heaven, and why the image I had of floating choirs and harps was all entirely wrong. I think that if you ever felt spiritually homesick, that you look at Earth today and you go, why are there so many troubles? Why are people so at odds with each other? Couldn't all of this be better? That's what this book is offering as encouragement and insight. First of all, we're longing for home. That's, I think, why we get so grief-stricken about what we see going on in the world around us. And Fitzpatrick begins with something that most of us can relate to, this deep sense that we're not at home right now, that you might have a wonderful life, you might have a great family, you feel love and a cozy house and a good job, but somewhere deep down inside, you feel a little displaced, a little bit like this isn't it, and this isn't what it was always supposed to be. And she compares our life on Earth to staying in a Motel 6. And if you've never been at one, it's basically a very low-cost motel. It has the basics: a bed, a sink, a roof, but it's not your home. It's temporary. It works for now, but you don't want to live there. You don't want to be there forever. In that same way in our life, no matter how good we may have it or how hard we might have it right now, what we're going through isn't ultimately what we were meant to be at, what we were created for. We were created for something more. We, in the end, rejected the something more, but we're going to get that. That longing for home is hardwired in us. It's a part of how God made us. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, He set eternity in our hearts of men. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, he says, He has set eternity in the hearts of men. We were built to want more than this. It is deep inside of us, this flawed earth. But what we're going to get is better. And when we long for something more than this, when we long for heaven, it is a feature. It is how we were supposed to long for things in our lives. I think even people who aren't Christians, never heard of Christ, also have that same longing in them. And like I said, when I started this podcast out a couple years ago and now turned it into YouTube video, I always had this idea of paradise to paradise, that this is a journey we're on. We left Eden, we're going to heaven. And that's what this podcast and this YouTube channel is all about. Fitzpatrick lays out this framework that's really helpful for the Christian life, that we were in Eden, our very first home. God walked with us. And then we lost that through our actions, through our own behaviors, through our own choices. And now we live in a world of pain and confusion with beauty and joy tangled in together. It's not one thing or the other. But the story isn't over. God is preparing us for a new paradise, a renewed earth. Everything that is broken will be made whole again. That's the destination. Heaven isn't about this disembodied escape. It's not about spirits floating around with harps in space. The Bible promises something much more substantial: a new heaven, a new earth, a resurrected physical body, real relationships, doing things. We're not escaping creation. We're going to see it redeemed, perfected. And my friend kind of said something interesting, and I've been thinking about this, is that if everything's perfect, isn't it going to be boring? Isn't a life without not necessarily sin around, but maybe the things that aren't quite godly are some of the things that are fun and enjoyable in life? And are we still going to enjoy life when we don't have that imperfection and that sin? And I started thinking about it. How many times do we do something and sin and imperfection wreck it? But when we have good things, we're going in God's way, we still enjoy it. We still have fun with it. We still find laughter. We still find curiosity in that. We still love inventing things. It has nothing to do with sin. Our joy in earth has nothing to do with sin and has everything to do with how God built us. Fitzpatrick went on to say that homesickness is when we feel the news is too much, when life disappoints us, when something we hope to do, like I said, turns out poorly. That's the part we're leaving behind. That's where we start to feel this homesickness. It's evidence that our future home is calling to us. It's God's reminder that we were made for something more than what we see here. And Romans 8:24 says, hope that is seen is no hope at all. Romans 8:28 says that hope, what we've seen, is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they have already? In other words, we hope because it's not yet here, that we're waiting for something greater, that this longing is not a weakness in us, it's faith. And she's clear that we're not called to ignore this world or just wait it out. We're called to live here with purpose, with love, to serve and represent Christ right here. Remember, be that beacon of light. But we also need to remember that this isn't our final destination, and we are ambassadors here, not citizens. Fitzpatrick uses this metaphor that helps bring it all home. She talks about C.S. Lewis and how this earth was called the Shadowlands. It's a dull version of what heaven and eternity is going to be like and what we're going to experience. I think about it, if you ever seen the movie The Matrix, right? There's that gray, drab tone to the entire movie. And then when Neo wakes up, everything goes into vivid colors. And that's the way I think, in its essence, this world is. It's muted, it's partial goodness. And when heaven arrives, that curtain is going to get pulled back. And finally, we will see in full color what was dim is going to become clear. I was in one of the most beautiful places on earth with my coworker. We had to go to Hawaii in January and in February and in March of about a decade ago to implement a hospital on the software. And we got to go hiking on the nights and weekends. And we were in one of the most beautiful places. We were standing on top of this mountain. And from one side, we could see the Hawaiian island. And on the other side, we saw whales jumping in the ocean. And it was just one of the most breathtaking things we've ever seen. And I said to my coworker, who is also a believer and a Christian, I said, remember this. This is just a preview of heaven, and it's a shadowland. It's not even as vivid and as beautiful as what we will see in heaven. It is just a shade of what we're going to see. The best is yet to come. So then the question comes, are we going to work when we're in heaven? Rick Warren always puts it that we're going to have jobs. And the one thing I love about Fitzpatrick and her book is that she explores this idea of work in heaven. And some people might be disappointed in it and say, oh, what, there's still going to be work? But this is the idea, is that work is never the problem. Sin's the problem. That work is tiring and at times demeaning, and at times it doesn't pay what it should, and it's not joyful, and it's not purposeful. And maybe we don't even find it satisfying. But in heaven, that's what's going to get restored. We will have work that perfectly aligns with who God made us to be. Not stress, not office politics, not burnout, but imagine creating, building, exploring, teaching, planting without frustration, without sin, without people trying to sabotage you, or without work not recognizing the hard work you did. It's just going to be pure joy in doing what we're doing. And she even encourages us to imagine what kind of job we would love to have. For me, I would love to be like a nature explorer, hopping planet to planet, visiting every animal, saying hi to every critter. And maybe that's a little too Steve Irwin for you, but that's the idea. I would just love to be able to do that, also with a glorified body. That's what I imagine that I would be built to do. But the other part of it is that she says that the lost sheep and the shepherd, we just talked about this in the Bible in Small Steps podcast, is the idea that Jesus is our shepherd. It reminds me, as I mentioned in that other podcast, of when I was hiking in England. I was walking through fields of sheep, flocks around us. The sheep wouldn't come anywhere near me, but they would go when the shepherd or the owner came and called to the sheep. They'd come running in. But I tried to pet every sheep I could, and no sheep would have anything to do with me. My friend just kind of laughed at me. But I just remember it was getting to be kind of later in the day, and there was one little baby lamb sitting by itself in the middle of this huge field. The rest of the sheep went in, moved on. This little guy stayed behind, and he was just calling out to mom, calling out to anyone who would have it. And at one point, the farmer walks out to come get it. And I suddenly kind of got like, I'm not a teary person. I'm not a real mushy person. I got a tear in my eye, and I said, that's us. We're sitting in that field thinking we're forgotten, lost. We didn't go back. And there comes Jesus looking for us, the good shepherd that comes looking for us. He's not just calling at a distance. He walks up right to the middle of the field to get us, carries us, brings us back so that we can be with the others. Oh boy. So that's when we get that idea. And like I said, I got all misty, and luckily my friend was up ahead a little bit so she couldn't see me in this little sheep moment that was going on. But that made the parable of the sheep come alive to me in a whole new way. She says that heaven is not the Crab Nebula. Some people might mock the idea of heaven. And, there was a guy, an astronaut, the Russian astronaut says, well, I flew to heaven and I didn't see God when I went into space. Or heaven just sounds like boring, eternity, in the clouds, that kind of thing. Heaven's not outer space. It's not floating around Saturn or hanging out the Crab Nebula. That's missing the point entirely. Fitzpatrick reminds us that heaven is a renewed world, a physical, grounded, joyful new earth. It's not just even a new galaxy. You won't even need a new spacesuit. But the best part about it is it's a place where we can live our best human lives. Creativity, learning, community, beauty, love, all the things that we think of when we think of God, everything that we were meant to be instead of what we have now, sinfulness, brokenness, hurt, anxiety, baggage, whatever it is, it's going to be perfected in this harmony with us, with each other, and our relationship to God and its creation will become perfected. And so right now, she says that we're not there yet. In the meantime, we're here not just to do jobs, but also to have a mission as Christ's ambassadors. 2 Corinthians 5:20 says that we are Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. That means our time, our lives here, our choices that we make, they matter. Eternity isn't just about where we're going, but it's about how we reflect God and heaven and Jesus' sacrifice right here on earth right now. So we're called to tell each other, we're called to be witnesses, to be the light, to reflect that light that Jesus is. And one illustration I do when I give this speech at a Christian college is I said, imagine that there's a bridge out ahead and there's people on bikes racing towards that bridge. Would you stop them? Would you say, hey, wait, stop, the bridge is out? Or would you just go, I'm tired, I'll warn them later, it's not that urgent? But that's the urgency of evangelism. The bridge is out. This isn't about fear. This is about love and telling people the bridge ahead is out and you are headed towards destruction. It has an urgent message. You don't know when people leave this earth. And so it's important that we keep that in mind. Fitzpatrick also brings up something that's really beautiful about the sacraments, baptism and communion and marriage. And she says that these are moments where heaven and earth touch, like it's a thin place. where we get to see a glimpse into the eternal. We live these busy lives. We treat them as chores. Ugh, gosh, communion again. I just want to sit in my pew and, watch. Or, oh gosh, a baptism at the end of church. We're going to be here another half hour. These are not burdens. They're gifts. They remind us that God is present with us right here, right now, not just in the future. Today, we had an installation of a missionary who's going to Thailand. And it was so touching to watch people who knew this family talk about them as we installed them for this mission. What does that all mean? I mean, in the end, what does all of this mean? It means that we can have hope. And not just a shadow of a hope or a fake hope, but instead a very deep and steady hope, a confidence that heaven is real, it's coming, it's going to be better than we could possibly imagine, and there's no fear here on earth. But I said to someone who asked me if I was afraid during that time, I said, I read the last page of the book. I know how this ends. Nothing can be that frightening when you know how the book ends. And Fitzpatrick ends her book by reminding us that when believers die, we think we're saying goodbye, but instead we're saying hello. It's a beginning of forever. It's a beginning of home. No more goodbyes. No more sadness. Just an eternal hello. So my challenge to you, I guess, this week is to think about what gifts and passions has God given you here? What do you find joy in? What brings you ultimate satisfaction in doing? And think about that. Is that a preview of what you might do in heaven? Maybe you were meant to teach or write or garden or compose music or explore galaxies or care for animals. Whatever it is, heaven is not a waste of your uniqueness. It's a fulfillment of it. It's a place for you to find the ultimate purpose. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you watching and listening to this. Remember that every podcast is also a YouTube video, is also a website. And this one is smallstepswithgod.com. It has a blog article related to this particular chapter. I'm working my way on getting transcripts up there as well. So please tell a friend, leave a review, say something in the chat comments here, or you're always welcome to email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. And remember, the steps you take today are shaping your experiences of heaven tomorrow. I mean, not literally tomorrow. So take them with purpose and with joy.